Jessica Crow. I am the founder of Apogee and the host of Change Leader Insights, which is a podcast all about change, leadership, transformation. And I'm so excited because today I have here with me Ket Patel. Ket is the founder of Change Agitators. He's a Change Management Institute accredited master change practitioner with 20 years of experience. He is a consultant. He's got a lot of wealth of knowledge that I am so excited to tap into today. Ket, thank you so much for being here with me. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your backstory, your origin story, and how you got into change management?
Yeah, thanks, Jessica, for having me. And it's really great to be on the podcast, just talking to someone who's equally passionate about this work we do. The backstory, where to start. I think probably like a lot of people that find this profession, they spend a long time doing something else. So my something else was I was like an analyst, a data analyst. I became a project manager. I led a team of project managers, and I kind of looked at the way we were delivering projects and went, this just isn't working for people that are meant to benefit from it.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, that's sort of like 7-8 years into my career, I found this notion that, actually the way you present information to people, the way you engage them in a change you want to make, actually is quite an important aspect of trying to land it and get the benefits out. So it's the other side of projects. And then I just went, well, no one seems to be doing it that well. Like it kind of focuses on a couple of things which always get squeezed, like training, or actually the comms is like just to senior stakeholders.
Yeah.
So I kind of, this isn't difficult to do better. So I started to sort of dabble in change management as a project manager and just went, actually, this stuff is way more interesting, getting to kind of speak to people. And and then I noticed that actually the way lots of organizations do projects is very mechanical. And it's not really an effective way to do it in volume and in ways that bring a good experience, a good employee experience to organizations. So I just felt to me that there was actually an organizational benefit to doing change management on top of just getting projects done effectively. So that's kind of how I've sort of navigated my career to now, is sort of just getting closer and closer to what does it mean to do a better job for every employee when it comes to change.
Yeah. And well, what's really cool is that, and very accurate too, I would imagine many people don't go, they finish school and start as a change manager, right? We find our way there through the observations, the conversations, the results we're seeing in an organization. So I love that you had that journey to get you to where you are today. And it led to some insights and perspective for you that led you to create, I believe it's a nonprofit, a community that you're starting to help people start to think about change management and what that means further upstream, meaning as students or as young professionals. Can you tell us a little bit about that community and how that's going, and why you're so passionate about helping people grasp change management earlier in their careers?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a venture that I have no idea where it might go, but it feels right to do. So the venture is called Change Reactions. It is a community group aimed at new people to the field. So I think one thing is that the field itself is kind of very difficult to navigate. If you can't, if in my head, I think of organizational change as the broad field, and then you've got change management, project management, business analysis, OD, HR, lots of these sorts of people-focused roles and change-focused roles, but no real easy way to necessarily know where you should start and which type of role offers what and where the overlap is. So I wanted to try and make that simpler for people by really sort of creating a space where people can talk about their experiences early on and learn from one another at similar places, which is what the community is aimed at. But also as an outreach is to kind of say, well, look, there's a credible career in this as well. So it's not just, you kind of want to sort of make that career path easier for people, but I also want to attract people to it. So like if we attract people but don't give them the clarity when they get here, it becomes a bit confusing. But so we've got to do both. So that's what I'm trying to do with that group. but its origins for me also came from the fact that everybody I speak to, I think yourself included, found this role sort of 10
Hmm.
years after doing something else, right? Or
Yeah.
doing lots of
Yeah.
things that kind of skirted around this people.
That's
And I
right.
went, why is it like that? Why does it take us 10 years for a group of people to find this profession? And what
Yeah.
have we lost out on from all the people that never found it that would have been really good at it? So
Yeah.
I'm like, there's an opportunity missed, that there are a whole host of people leaving schools, universities, and they never find this career because they find something else that grabs them, and that's what they spend their time on. Now, arguably, they do find it because they end up in that cycle
Yeah.
of sort of finding this stuff interesting. But I do think we lose probably some of the talent, and also it's the thinking
Yeah.
that is there at the beginning of your career is very like optimistic, energetic,
Yeah.
and then most organizations knock that energy out of people, and then
Then
you
you
fall
become
into operation.
jaded and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, actually, well, if you that, I mean, yeah, so many facets to this sort of hope for this community and this movement is that those skills are actually really powerful,
Yeah.
increasingly so. The skills you and I take into every sort of change, initiative, the thinking we apply is really key in this
Mhm.
world that is evolving around us. So yeah, there's so many facets to why. There is one more actually, but I'll just pause for
Yeah, no,
breath, really.
yeah, well, I was gonna say kind of two things. The fact that we aren't thinking and finding this sooner in our careers has had an, I'm not gonna say a negative impact on the profession, but we haven't made considerable gains in terms of the results. Like you provided a stat, right? From, you know, we've got 60 years of theory, 30 years of practice, thousands of logs, articles, lots of information, but our ability to increase adoption has just marginally increased over that time span. So I think that's one factor, right? Because we're finding it later. It's not the
Yeah,
intention behind moving into this profession doesn't start for a long
yeah,
time because we don't have that upstream opportunity. So I love what you're doing, trying to create a community around that. The other piece that I thought was really interesting to this, because it does get into culture and creating places where people love to work, and also, you know, the organization's a captive audience. You talk about in an article that you wrote. So everyone go find Change Management Needs a Prevention Strategy. Ket wrote this article and it's fantastic. You talk about how a lot of what we as change management leaders do is ask questions, think critically, but also there's some core elements that you saw being developed in younger people, like mindfulness, resilience, self-reflection. And there's a link between that and change management and
mm,
organizational culture. So I don't know where you want to lean in, you know, kind of like diving into what's happened to the profession as a result, or why, if somebody's early on, like this is such a valuable place to go
yeah.
explore.
That was one of the other points I wanted to make actually, is that
Yeah.
the article was kind of the emergence of this idea that something isn't working in the way we're doing things now, and
Yeah.
I think the exact stat was like over 10 years, 36% of organizations that were surveyed had a change management office, a sort of structural focus on managing change better. And that
Mm-hmm.
went to 40% 10 years later. And then you
Mm-hmm.
consider all of that effort that's been put in and the amount we talk
Mm-hmm.
about it. And it just to me said, well, why is it struggling to have that impact? That's good, it's progress, but it feels like for the volume of effort expended, it doesn't feel like great
Agree.
progress.
Yeah.
And then I happened to just be reading something around the way the fire service in the UK had had its budget slashed, but
Yeah.
managed to still reduce the amount of actual fires they had attended. And the way they did it is they went on an offensive campaign of education.
Yeah.
Um, and by informing people, they armed them with the ability to stop things before they got to the point where it was needed. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me was like an interesting flip of the way we educate. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of went, well, what happened to me when I went into my first job? I was told this is how things work. It's always been like this. Don't try and do too much stuff differently. Like it works like this for a reason. And so I had all this energy to try new things, do things differently, and to push things. to be better, but I was told no. And
Right.
then if you don't have that kind of persistence around that mindset, you'll just fall into the no category. You'll just be, oh, okay, that's the way it is. And then you become
Yeah.
that person. So I kind of went, well, hold on. So we're creating this ourselves. If we
Yeah.
just took a step before someone got to that point, before they went into an organization, and actually gave them the confidence to say, I know you're saying no, but I don't buy your no. Just because you've got more experience than me, I
Yeah.
know that this is a better thing to do, because look at the impact it will have. And having that conversation is often, well, not having that conversation comes from not having the confidence to know that it can be better, and actually being better
Yeah.
is something that you have to drive. You have to have the agency in yourself, right? So for me, it sort of came full circle to, okay, well, that's a really big benefit. Not only do we currently lose out on really good people because the profession
Hmm.
doesn't make this connection, but
Hmm.
actually organizations as a whole create change. They create this level of resistance by telling people when they come in who are hungry for kind of just learning and new stuff. Don't worry, pretty little head, about that. Do something. Do what we tell you, and worry about change when we tell you to worry about change.
Hmm. Hmm.
Instead of just allowing people's kind of natural, you know, curiosity and desire to improve stuff to kind of have a place. So I felt like, yeah, we need a prevention strategy within the
Yeah.
change management field, that we need people like you and I less over time. It's not that we would never need people like us, but the roles we would play would be very different. And if more people came in, actually, our jobs would be a lot easier. If everybody that came into an organization had an awareness of change for themselves, how much easier would that be for
I
us to
mean,
work with?
yeah, we're so aligned on that. I mean, that's part of, my philosophy is everyone should have change management skills, because they would have more awareness of how things can work effectively, efficiently, have a good experience in an organization. And we also need specialists who
Yeah.
are thinking about this day in, day out, how to do things better. As you were talking about, kind of explaining the the construct within an organization that prevents people early on from being able to make those changes, how cool would it be if everyone did have that awareness of, hey, the term fire drills exists for a reason.
Mm,
I think most organizations, they have their strategy, they have their plans, but we spend so much time dealing with fire drills and pivots. If everyone understood the implications of when we make a decision to implement a change, whether it's big or small, and we connect those dots and we think about the big picture, we have that macro view and then plan accordingly. It would be, I think organizations would get things done faster. You talk about organizational agility, resistance turns into agility. There's so many benefits of going down this path of thinking and letting some of our young, motivated, not yet jaded colleagues kind of take the lead on that, which I don't know what your thoughts on this are, but the demographics of the workplace are shifting, and some of
yeah.
that, the old ways aren't necessarily going to work for the newer young leaders that are coming into the fold. So everything you're saying
Yeah.
resonates with me. But
I think that organizational agility is the other kind of sort of why would organizations want to invest in this? And I do
yeah.
think um, there's this there's this known dynamic that most organizations face, which is that they can plan everything they want to plan, but there's stuff they
Mhm.
have to respond to that they can't foresee, right?
Right.
And that's increasingly out of their control and macro, like things that
Hmm.
happen one side of the world can detrimentally affect your whole business, as we've seen through many things in the last couple of years.
Hmm.
And so what's the response to that? Well, it's creating that constant alignment and a constant ability to respond to things as they happen. But we've got organizations that are very focused on repeatable, predictable, and
Hmm.
set ways of working, right? Because the business is to drive an output consistently for the benefit of a client or a customer. But that mindset also then means you're less open to change. So if you had that change mindset but could still focus on delivering stuff repeatedly but with improvement,
Hmm.
then you could collectively, when you're faced with an issue, you could collectively respond. And if you collectively
Yeah.
respond, you can collectively move together towards whatever that is, and you can make decisions in a collective. But that's not how it works right now. It's all top down and trickles down, and that time um, it takes for people to get on board is all part of the fixed mind, or I don't want to use the word fixed, but that kind of operational mindset, which is keep
Yeah.
everything repeatable and the same. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just think if organizations do want to truly be able to respond rapidly to new things, then actually everybody in the organization needs an ability to not only understand change for themselves, so when they're presented with change, how do they react to it and what's good and bad about that, but also help others around them manage that uncertainty. And
Mhm.
then that collective power is, okay, well, now we've got to do something about it. So what is it we're going to do? Right. And
Mhm.
understand that. So, and, you know, that's what you and I do as day jobs, right? We try and
Yeah.
create that environment where people have that space to do it. But what if people did
Yeah.
it for themselves?
I know that would be, well, part of
Magic, right?
it'd be amazing. Well, you do link the all of this to even the mental health crisis, right? Stress is it impacts everyone, and some more than others, and it contributes to physical health, mental health, issues. And so every can you help us and the people that are listening take what you're talking about here and draw and kind of make that connection from, if we do these things, if we are able to think about change management and the benefits of being able to respond, process, together, and figure out how to move forward, what kind of impact could that have on our stress levels, on our mental health as it relates to work? What's the link there?
Um, so for me, like the link was I was learning that my daughter, when she was at school, was, and she was like 6 or 7 at the time, was being taught sort of like mental health awareness type
Hmm.
interventions. And I kind of frowned at it to start with. I was like, well, why would kids at that age need that? Right. And then fast forward sort of maybe a year or two, and I just went kind of the thing that seems to cause a level of resistance in organizations is this
Hmm.
sort of like lack of space for someone to um, see something in front of them that they're uncertain about,
Hmm.
know that the reaction it has in them also tells them something about what it means to them. So the way we emotionally react to something says a lot about why it's upsetting for us or why we're frustrated by it. And to dig into that gives us a level of understanding about ourselves and what we need.
Hmm.
And then to use that sort of self-awareness to then actually take action, which is not reactive but more proactive, as to kind of how
Hmm.
do I navigate this with some, not the world, you know, like it's not, I'm not a victim here. I have some agency in this situation
Hmm.
and I've unlocked it by becoming more self-aware as to how I've reacted. So like, and they're all skills that you think with a volume of information that's coming at us constantly in our kind of modern world, the younger you are, the more you need to have that awareness of self and the way you're reacting to things and what it means for you and why you actually reacted in those ways. So, you know, self-awareness, self-reflection, um, that ability to kind of take those two dynamics and actually process them and think, well, what might I do differently in the situation if it comes up again? I think they're all just really super important life skills as we kind of are overwhelmed with information and options
Yeah.
and stuff like this. And I just don't think there is a place where it's taught in a way where it's a benefit. Like, so my daughter's education on it kind of stopped because the schooling took over.
Hmm.
And so then you're kind of given the tools. You don't really, you learn them, but you don't practice them
Right.
in real life. And then
Right.
you move on and the education takes over. So you've kind of forgotten them. Whereas I went, well, actually, well, we need people to practice this every day because this kind of stuff is happening for everyone everywhere. And it
Yeah.
is a cause of anxiety and frustration and
Yeah.
stress
Yep.
because we're overwhelmed, right, very easily nowadays. And not because we're not, I'll agree, there's two sides of the coin. We either have poor coping strategies, so we're less resilient, or there
Hmm.
are just genuine too much information for us to process and we have to kind of
Yeah.
manage that flow. But either way, self-reflections and self-awareness, they're really key to building your own resilience, but they're also really key to creating your own agency,
Hmm.
to control situations better. So, and these skills I think we use all the time, right? Like if we want to be that buffer for people, we need to take stuff on, but we also need to let stuff go ourselves as sort of change managers. So yeah, for me, the link is we use these skills to help us help others navigate change. If more people were aware of these skills for themselves, they'd actually navigate change and the stress, anxiety, agency that they could create on the flip side better for themselves and feel more in control. And
Yeah.
that for me feels really purposeful at this kind of time where we are in the world with onslaughts of technology and information.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned earlier that, if these things were to come true, what would it mean for the role of the change management leader, right? How would what we do evolve? A few years ago, I had brought up the topic of change leaders being somewhat accountable for developing organizational resilience. And I
Yeah.
was surprised by the pushback I received from people who are peers in this space. And the question was, people are responsible for their own resilience, which, as we're discussing, is true, right? How do we develop those skills to uh, cope and process and build our resilience? And at the same time, I still believe there's an opportunity for change leaders to help teams do what you and I are describing. There's a
Yeah.
captive audience. There's motivation to be connected to the organization, not just for a paycheck. Like, ideally, everyone has that reason why, and not everyone does, but why they're working for the organization they're working for. What are your thoughts on the role of change management leaders, change leaders, having a formal, should our training evolve to give us the skills to lead self-reflection activities, to have those mindfulness tools and techniques that not only, that we leverage and apply as part of our practice and process? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a really important evolution of our work, right? I think where it is at the moment, and again, the stat kind of plays into this, is that it's becoming more of a functional response to another functional problem. We want to get projects done faster. How do we
Mm-hmm.
get projects done faster? We bring in change management and we bring in a process and we try to put people through that process. And it kind
Right.
of like it's a process response to a process problem,
Yeah.
which the original problem is actually more human, right? So we're
Yeah.
just trying to fix it with more and more processes
Yeah.
instead of just going back to basics, which is, if we just treat two people as needing to communicate effectively to one another, having their own emotional responses to things built from experience that they've had in their lives, and we should want to appreciate that, then actually it's a very natural thing to consider, right? Self-reflection and
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness. They're two super important skills to just form really good relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you did that on a sort of organizational scale, well, then you've just got more trust amongst
I trust
employees
my
and leaders.
professions.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it brings that sort of like collective, right? Like I know not everyone is going to buy into like the mission behind a company, right? And they might be there for a
Yeah.
paycheck or whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't buy into being part of a group who tries to achieve something, right? So yeah, and the thing I always get with this, I'm sure you see it, right, is that that's going to take longer. And I kind of go, it it's a bit of a cliche to say in order to go faster, you do at some point have to slow down first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that no one wants to take their foot off the pedal at a senior level, but no one is dealing with the fact that every project we often run realize its benefits later than we'd like to, and
Right.
experiences less than optimal employee experience in it. Every
Yeah.
employee, every employee survey you would ever see has some level of distrust in leadership's ability to make decisions and
Yeah.
the way in which change is navigated, kind of really common areas on employee surveys. And that affects motivation and that
Yeah.
affects output. And I was
Yeah.
actually talking to an HR colleague recently, and one thing we were kind of talking about is if you think about the what you want, ideally you want employees to give everything they can in their day job,
Mm-hmm.
right? And do that with commitment. And if they do that and they feel trusted, when you ask them to go that extra mile, like
Mm-hmm.
in a change, you can tap into that additional capacity
Mm-hmm.
temporarily. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't get that other stuff right, you're not going to get the additional capacity out of people, because why would they? What benefit does it bring them? So there's this
Right.
really important link between feeling part of something and trusted, and having trust in the people around you in your day-to-day job, that
Mm-hmm.
allows you to tap into extra capacity when things get tough. And so, yeah, change is affected by, our ability to navigate change at speed is affected by how well the organization is already operating. So if you're not operating effectively now, trying to put more change onto people is not gonna happen quickly. So
Yeah.
that, so I think there is like an important link at the moment with HR that we, or people and culture teams, where we need to be looking at what is change doing to people in organizations, what
Mm-hmm.
negative effects is it having in the way we're managing it, but also how is leadership in itself, and the way we communicate our vision, and how we manage people within the business, how is that affecting people's motivation to even want to be there, right? Like, you heard this term quiet quitting, and the flip
Mm-hmm.
side of that is discretionary effort. Like, there's a lot of that going on, but it's all to do with the way the organization runs. It's largely got nothing to do with change, but it affects
Yeah.
change if you've got quiet quitters, or you've got no discretionary effort willing to
Yeah.
be expended.
Yeah. It's all connected. And it makes me think too about, if we get to the specifically to change, to tap into that capacity when there is a big change, a transformational change, that's one thing. What I think we lose sight of, and maybe this is where the mindset shift and thinking needs to occur, is that's just one piece of what's happening on a day-to-day basis. The leadership element for sure has an impact, but there's all these other changes that are happening that are at the team level, or just minor changes that are happening, system updates, whatever.
Yeah,
Those have the volume has an impact on our ability to tap into that, our overall capacity. So I
yeah.
think it's important for us to remember it's not just this transformation we're moving forward with, it's everything else. And that's what makes this so challenging. That's what
I
makes,
think,
yeah.
and the other aspect is that our lives are like intertwined with work now. They used to
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
like, but like the other day, I was just about to join a phone call. My daughter phoned me, right? And she's like, "Oh, something's happened at school. Can you come and collect me?" I'm like, "Cool,
Yeah.
no problem."
Yeah.
But I had to, all of a sudden, I wouldn't be able to do that if it was in London. But I was at home. I was 10 minutes up from the store, and I
Yeah.
had a colleague who understood, got children. So this that's a cognitive load. Like, we're just sort of like, "Oh God, I've got to
Absolutely.
reorganize my diary right now, but I've got to go and do that." And so there is this element of sort of compassion,
Yes.
that is emerging as a sort of like property of people, employees.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's one that's tapped into from an organizational perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you kind of go back into this kind of process, like, well, we have to get everyone back into the office, or we have to go and, set really rigid policies. And I kind of think, well, the way people will go above and beyond to tap into discretionary effort is that they will feel like people have got my back. Like, you have to understand a business is a business, and sometimes bad decisions have to be made, which you will not like.
Mm-hmm.
But if overall you trust in that people have got your back when you need to, and you're valued, people will give that 110%, right? I'm sure you've seen it
Absolutely.
in many different fields of life. People go above and beyond. Volunteering is a really good example, where
Mm-hmm.
you've got a collective mindset and you've got a bigger goal. You can give so much additional time.
Yeah.
You'd spend hours doing things, right? The really monotonous things sometimes, because I'm working with a bunch of people who are fun, and
Yeah.
but that's not all organizations, right? It's
Yeah.
very mechanical. And I think that's a leadership style as well, from a time, which perhaps also needs to change to some extent.
Yeah.
But
That definitely resonates with me.
yeah.
This has been I love this conversation. I have learned a lot from this conversation, and I have no doubt that the people that are watching and listening will do the same. If there was one other thing, I've got like my list of questions. Um, and actually, maybe we can go in this direction. Sorry, I think this is really important. You're doing some research, coming back to that process doesn't necessarily, it's a human problem, right? You're
Mm.
taking a look at, I believe you're doing some research with a university to sort of uncover the truth around change
Yeah.
management frameworks and interventions. Are you prepared to share any insights at this point, or should we
Yeah.
table that for a future
Well,
podcast? Or
I can definitely come back and talk about some of the stuff we've learned. I can
yeah,
tell you a little bit about what we're trying to achieve. So, you know, the work I've done has largely been just logical to me.
yeah,
Like, of course, you would go and talk to people, and of course, you try to figure out how it's going to affect them, and then provide them some level of support to help them over that learning anxiety. And this is all just in my head and completely normal.
mm-hmm.
Um, but a lot of what we advise, because it lacks evidence and can be a little bit like, wouldn't it be nice if we did, like, if like it's a nice
Yeah,
to have, it's presented. It doesn't get the backing of senior leaders, right? They kind
very
of look
true.
at it and go, it's easy to kind of, I don't buy it. Show me the numbers.
Yeah.
So for me, what we're doing in this research, and we've partnered with a university in the UK that supports people who have already got careers but want to continue their education. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's called Birkbeck University,
Mm-hmm.
um, and there's a master's program that has students that come in every year, and we set them topics to go and investigate. So one of them is, what are the skills that would best suit line managers to effectively lead change in organizations?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that, as an example, is, I spend a lot of my time talking to team managers and sort of coaching them a little bit and trying to help their teams feel
Yeah.
more certain about what's
Absolutely.
coming. So what we're trying to do is bring evidence to the things we advise, so that when people challenge us to say, well, show me how this actually makes a
Mm-hmm.
difference to my business, we can say, well, here you go. We've done some research. And
Yeah.
so that's, I want to, this idea of evidence-based practice for me is really important. I think HR is spending quite a bit of time in this space as well, because again, they probably come under the same challenge of,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like nice to have to do all these things. And I think, the importance of like understanding psychology and what motivates people, that they're not easy to grasp, but you do
Mm-hmm.
need to have some things to lean on that people trust, and people trust in, well evidenced research. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring sort of evidence to the practices you and I sort of know have a positive impact, but give people the tools to go and have those more senior conversations to say, look, this is the evidence that exists for what we're suggesting, and these are the benefits you can expect from applying it. So it is
Yeah.
worth the investment.
That is fantastic. I am looking forward to seeing that research. I think it's time we move away from some of the old stats that say this percent of projects fail, right? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
to, hey, these specific interventions and skills are meaningful, and here's the data to prove it. So I love that.
yeah,
That's exciting. You'll have to keep me posted, and we'll come back and have another conversation about some of those insights, because that, I
yeah.
think,
Very happy
beneficial
to.
to everyone in our space. We'd have that anchor to really,
Mm,
to move from. Fantastic. Ket, how can people get in touch with you, find you, learn more about change reactions, enlist in
yeah.
your services? Where's the best place to find you?
So change reactions, you can go to change-reactions.co.uk. It's info@change-reactions.co.uk. But best thing, come find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
I'm always sort of roaming around the halls of LinkedIn, ready to jump onto someone's thread, either correct them. I got the name Keyboard Warrior the other day, I'm waiting to kind of pounce on someone that says something, but I'm not that
Ah,
scary. I'm not that scary, honestly.
no, I read your posts and comments. They're very insightful and meant to create space for conversation. I love it. So keep up what you're doing on LinkedIn. I'm getting a lot of
Thank
value.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that. And thanks for
Yeah.
having me, Jessica. It was really nice to come on and talk with someone equally passionate about it. And I hope the audience find it useful. And yeah, thanks a lot.
You are so welcome. Have a great rest of your day.
Cheers. Thanks.